Four countries, four squads, two matches. You already know what this is. Champions League semifinals. We are going to tell you what's going to happen in the second leg.
Yeah. Let's go with I think the first game that's going to happen out of those two second legs, which is going to be Arsenal via Atletico. We said this tie wasn't going to be pretty, right? No one thought it would be. It was no PSG Bayern. I think it was exactly the kind of tense, scrappy, somewhat miserable watch you'd expect from these two teams, especially miserable for the fans, I imagine. Some good long stoppages, lots of penalty drama, no open play goals. All the goals were from penalties. I will say though, going team by team, I'll start with Atleti. We've discussed before, but they have a script to these knockout ties, right? Whether they're at home or away in the first leg, the usual plan is they build some sort of lead and then they make the second leg awkward as hell. And usually they do a good job of managing that lead. They did it against Tottenham. They did it in two different comps against Barca. Even when Barca came flying back in both second legs, Copa del Rey and then the UCL, Atleti still had that aggregate position to protect and punish from. They do not have that here. They had a good spell after halftime, but they just did not start off nearly well enough. They were on the back foot, and so they go to the Emirates level, not ahead. And that's a pretty big difference to their game plan. Arsenal weren't looking amazing in that first half, but they were the better team. I think I said this as we were discussing and watching the game. Neither team I thought really deserved a lead off that first half, but if it was going to be either of them, it should have absolutely been Arsenal. They grew into the game, and by being the more threatening team for long periods, they took a lot of the sting out of that Metropolitano crowd, which is, I think, what Arteta would have wanted most. He did not want a high risk, high reward attacking performance here, but instead, he wanted, and what they were able to do is to take this very questionable tie and calm it down a lot, so that going into this next game in London, they have a lot of confidence. Uh, Credit to CoDaKrew as well, who's got a reputation for being bad in big games. I would consider this a big game, and he did real well to find Arsenal that precious goal for the draw, right? But yeah, I think it is definitely advantage Arsenal. Like, to Atleti's credit, the second half was much more like what we expected from them. But being ultimately without a win, again, going into the Emirates drawn level, not where they want to be. And we know, of course, these guys only need one burst of energy to find a goal, but I think now in the second leg, they'll need a lot more than just a single goal to get by.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was, as you're saying, get a lead, and Atleti really failed to do that. In the first half, I would say there were some questionable tactical decisions from Simeone, which partially led to that. But we also have to consider that one of the biggest advantages, at least I thought, for Atleti coming into this tie was going to be the left side advantage for them. Adeola Lookman, whether it was against Ben White or Christian Mosquera, I thought there was going to be a mismatch there. And while, especially in that second leg, I do think Lookman got quite a few chances, he was not able to convert any of them. And that is the reason why Atletico don't have a lead right now. They created more chances throughout the course of the game. They probably deserved to be up, but in the second half, when they were clearly dominant, Arsenal were able to essentially just park the bus and use their superior defense to keep it to Atleti only scoring one goal, and of course that being for a penalty. So there are two sides to this. One, credit to Arsenal. Obviously, in the first half, they played their game. The system was, what it was. It's not pretty football. It's defensive, and it's slowly grinding out squads. And as I was watching the match, and it was obviously very ugly. The commentators were saying, however, as far as results are confirmed or are concerned, rather, the first half was perfect from Arsenal. That was exactly Mikel Arteta's game plan, and it was being executed to a T. But to be fair to Simeone, he did make some good changes, I believe, in the second half. Uh, One being, of course, Llorente being pushed up at halftime. His own son, Giuliano Simeone, was being absolutely cooked by the back line. And obviously making that adjustment was huge. I would say that Llorente was struggling a bit in defense, but he did definitely contribute a lot to Atleti offensively. But I have to agree with you. Not being up, coming into the Emirates, it does put Atletico in a very dangerous and difficult position. Arsenal are incredibly difficult to beat at the Emirates. We just saw them whitewash Fulham 3-0 in an absolutely dominant performance, and Arsenal have conceded a goal at the Emirates in each of their last three Champions League matches at that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arsenal should feel pretty confident now. Not comfortable, don't get too comfortable, but confident because they got out level. They've got the second leg at home. And yeah, like you said, yesterday against Fulham, we saw a very forward thinking attacking performance. The return of Saka, him starting, immediately giving them sharpness and way better timing on the right. And the whole attack looked freer because of him. Gyökeres for two as well, continuing a great run of form right now at the exact time that you want your striker finding rhythm. I mean, just a week ago, like I was wondering if Arsenal were starting to run out of attacking ideas at exactly the wrong time when their schedule was getting real tight. But now it's looking like there's a good bit of life in this team. And yeah, you can forgive Atleti, for example, for losing their La Liga games because we know they don't care about La Liga anymore. But Arsenal have had this split priority, and you cannot discount this great showing from them and potentially a newfound ability to manage what seemed like a very tight, very difficult schedule for the Gunners. What we need to see now is, can Arsenal bring the same forward play they showed yesterday against Fulham without getting impatient? Because Atleti can obviously do a way better job than Fulham of trying to kill the rhythm. They'll foul, slow down restarts, make Arsenal always take that extra one or two touches around the box on every play. And for as bad as Atleti are at defending corners, if Arsenal have to start to rely on just those, I think that's probably a lot better for them compared to if Arsenal rarely go for the open play goals like they were yesterday. But again, if Arsenal can manage what they had to replicate what they had yesterday, some good counters out of the midfield, creativity from Saka, good final action, final efforts from Gyökeres, then Atleti can't just sit in and wait to get scored on, right? Eventually they have to step out, and I think that's where Arsenal can find enough to make the difference.
Yeah, and I think there are two key factors, two tactical adjustments that Arteta made, truly starting actually in the Atleti match, but especially in this Fulham match, which give me confidence that that is at the very least the clear game plan for Arsenal moving forward. One of them, as you said, has to be Bukayo Saka. This was his first start since coming back from injury against Fulham, and in just 45 minutes, he had, let me see what I have written down, two big chances, four key passes, broke Raul Jimenez's ankles, and got a goal and an assist, and a 9.5 match rating on SofaScore. And I usually hate SofaScore ratings, but that one I think is pretty well deserved.
And it's 9.5 off the first half. Didn't play
And
a
it's
minute of
9.5
that
about
second
playing a
half.
minute of the
Yep.
second half, which you know means that this man is being rested to play 90, 120 plus penalties if necessary for this tie. So be ready, Atletico. And not only was he great, I think he freed up space for the entire rest of the attack. In fact, I would say that was Trossard's best game of 2026. He gave so much space for Gyökeres, not only finding him for that first goal, but this man was just an absolute menace in the box. And I think this is something we've been saying for a while now, where, you know, part of the reason why Gyökeres has been maimed by this Arsenal squad is that they haven't played him as a striker. And despite the fact that for much of the season, they've been fiddling around with this guy. I mean, we know what he is. He is an open play scorer. You give him through balls and he's going to create chances for you. Despite this, he still has 21 goals this season, which I have to say is pretty solid for a debutant season from a striker. I do think there is a narrative that Gyökeres has been an absolute flop this season, but clearly the stats say otherwise. But the second key factor, in my opinion, is going to be about Declan Rice for me. We saw this against Atletico. He has, for the entire season, been playing as a number 6, with usually Zubimendi or somebody else playing as number 8. Against Atletico, he was a number 8. Zubimendi was pushed upwards, and in defending in transition, it was Declan Rice rather than Zubimendi who joined the back line. It freed up space and creativity for Zubimendi, and in this match against Fulham, the same thing happened only with Miles Lewis-Skelly. In my opinion, Lewis-Skelly is actually a better ball progressor, and he is better on the ball than, in my opinion, Zubimendi. At least from that match you saw, though I will admit that Lewis-Skelly at certain parts, especially earlier in the season, was not playing quite as well. But even assuming that Zubimendi is back, I do think that pushing Rice back and allowing the other creatives, obviously not to Zubimendi himself, but also an Eze, I know Havertz is injured, but somebody like a Martinelli or even Gyökeres, should he want to drift back, I do think that that is going to help Arsenal with their creativity and ability to create chances in open play.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need. You just got to optimize so that every great forward you can bring to this game, and of course they've been resting people, so they will have as many great forwards as possible available to them, and you want all of them shooting away. And I think Arteta's found it, what he needs for that. And hopefully this team now has the confidence that they need to go out and attack as much as they've got to. And again, not worry about set pieces, just go for regular ass, not regular goals, great goals. Go for great goals. Because I think there are players on this team that can find great goals for sure. Um, when we predicted this tie, I had Atleti edging it out, right? I thought their focus on this competition in particular, as well as their like knockout experience throughout this season in very tight ties that they consistently managed to edge out, they'd get a bit of an advantage here. I'm switching after the first leg. I think Atleti really did need a lead from Madrid, and they didn't get one. Arsenal weren't amazing, but at least for those first like 60 minutes, they were good enough. And then the last 30 minutes, they did a good enough job of parking the bus, right? And now they come into the home leg with, from these last two games of theirs, very strong momentum. I don't expect this to become wide open like PSG Bayern, obviously. Both these teams are very defensively disciplined. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think Arsenal have just enough attacking rhythm now. Because when we came into this tie, our thoughts were Arteta's still trying to play handball. Simeone's finally managed to get out of that phase, and hopefully in a knockout tie, that'll see Atleti through. But I think Arsenal's got their attacking rhythm now. So again, it'll be close for me, but I'll say it's a 2-1 Arsenal in the second leg, and they ultimately, whatever it is, they go through by a goal on aggregate.
Against Fulham, Arsenal only conceded one shot on target all game, and that was in the 72nd minute. It reminds me of the way we were talking about Arsenal at the beginning of the season. A team that was hyper-offensive, had incredible attacking threats, whether it be Gyökeres, Saka, Martinelli, Eze, Lewis Skelly. Everybody was contributing. And despite that, there were matches in the Premier League where if they even conceded a shot on target at all, it was often quite late in the match. And yes, those Premier League matches are not necessarily representative of Champions League quality, but when Arsenal played Atletico in the Emirates, while they were in that form, they eviscerated them 4-0. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but I agree with you. I think the way Arsenal have played, they have gotten their mojo back. I think the real reason is because of the two tactical adjustments they laid out. But I do see some people on social media saying, they weathered the storm in April. The April choke job has ended, and they have, unlike in previous Aprils, managed to hold on to first in the Premier League and hold on to not completely out of it in the Champions League. And now we're going to see what happens when Arsenal survives April and gets to play in May and June and get their mojo back. Obviously, not the reason, in my opinion, why they played the way they did against Fulham, but irregardless, I agree with you. I do have Arsenal winning this tie. I think Atletico will make it difficult, but ultimately, I'm going to say Arsenal win this 2-1 at home and win 3-2 on aggregate.
Yeah, fair. And then that takes us to our other tie, which is, we called it the tie of the neutrals, Bayern Munich v PSG. It sure as hell delivered. I mean, what do you even say about a 5-4 UCL match? And don't forget, if just a few shots went a bit better, especially Mayulu's at the end, we are going into double digits on this game. We were so close to that. I don't think the defenses were even especially bad here. Obviously, there were some clear individual errors at times, and when that happened, we did often get a goal. But I think both teams just decided the best way to survive through this game was to attack even harder. And they just kept pushing. And now I'm even more unsure of how things are going to go in this second leg, and whether my original prediction of Bayern narrowly getting through on aggregate will ring true. Not because them losing by a goal away has shattered my confidence or anything, but rather because instead of a 2-1 or a 3-2 win for PSG, it was a 5-4. You couldn't predict the first leg, and I don't think I can predict the second one that well either. So, I mean, I think for now, I'm just going to look at these two teams and see what they can bring to the table. I'll start with PSG. This game showed exactly why they can win this competition. I mean, you've touted Bayern's attack in our whole series as we've gone through the UCL. I've touted Barca's, right? But PSG, they have, of course, individual quality. And we saw that in, say, like Kvara's first goal. But then they also have this ridiculous chemistry. Like Kvara's later goal, for example. Hakimi gets into space down the right, passes it in for Dembele, but Dembele leaves it, and Kvara is arriving free to finish again. And we saw so many plays like this through this game. Again, a big reason we could have seen a lot more goals was they just had these great like set plays of sorts that they had in transition or even in a more settled attack. It just seems like everyone knows the next move on this team. Yeah, it's really great. They were very productive here. Though, even with this good team play and the potential to score more, Bayern created so much for themselves in that last game that PSG can't possibly feel secure. Olise was causing problems early. Kane was passing and shooting, and he did both well. And you could count on Diaz to make a great run every few minutes. So I don't think PSG can go to Munich and just play to hold the lead. Maybe that's a possibility in the Arsenal Atleti tie. Definitely not here. If they drop too deep, Bayern will create even more than last game, and eventually something's got to give. And if Bayern even take this to extra time, I think that's still advantage to Bayern. So PSG really should go for an early goal and try and keep a straight lead for as long as possible. Do not let Bayern equalize and find the momentum to make this game back and forth like the last one was. Be a bit brave. Fortunately, I think we can trust PSG to be brave.
Yeah, absolutely. They have shown bravery all Champions League long, all season long, and last season as well. Luis Enrique is holding a tight ship. I've seen some memes online comparing him to dictator Mbappe, only he actually is a manager and he really should be a dictator when you have all this quality on your squad. That's the reason, after all, he got rid of Mbappe from PSG and they won the Champions League the season after. You can't really blame him for thinking like this. Of course, one thing you mentioned, this is the tie of the neutrals, and I think that's true for two reasons. One is because that was absolutely an incredible first tie for neutrals to watch, but also because it must have been an incredibly stressful tie if you're a fan of either squad. Because what that match showed is that, unlike when PSG played Chelsea, you go 5-2 up and Chelsea fold because they have absolutely no psychological strength. When it comes to these two squads, there is no such thing as a safe lead. That is what that first tie showed us. You can never feel secure if you are a fan of either squad, no matter if it is at the Parc des Princes, where Bayern can go 3 goals down and then bring back two within 9 minutes, or if it's a PSG side who we know what they can do in any stadium. They can immediately eviscerate you, and there is no security when playing PSG either. And what I also agree with you on is you can't blame the defense, and other than that one Olise goal, you cannot blame the goalkeepers. Because when every shot is essentially a curler from like the edge of the box, going to perfectly in the corner and then hitting the post before going in, there's nothing you can do about this, whether you're a defender or you're a goalkeeper. What is true is that both of these teams are pushing up fullbacks and are overlapping midfielders, and it means that in transition they are vulnerable. But that's just the way these two teams play. That just means there's going to be more chances created. That is a tactical strategy that these two teams are willing to risk. PSG and Luis Enrique are rolling the dice. They know that Bayern's biggest disadvantage is their backline. And while Upamecano and Ta, in my opinion, were actually quite solid in the first tie, we know that they cannot be trusted to be that consistent throughout the Champions League. I mean, we've seen this every season. It feels like every year, Upamecano and Ta are going to have a few games where they just have absolute howlers when it comes to playing elite competition. Also, for PSG, I don't know how much we can really count on these attackers to have the performance they did. Obviously, incredible performance. I would say that Kvaradona, in particular, which is what I'm going to call him from now on, absolutely incredible. He had 2 shots the entire match, and he scored both of them, and they were both absolute bangers. Now, what I'm concerned about with this PSG side is I think that Kvaratskhelia or Kvaradona is clearly the best attacker on this PSG side. In my opinion, it's pretty obvious. Ousmane Dembele got more GA in that match. PSG have played through him and have played the attack through him all Champions League long. But in my opinion, he was significantly more wasteful, and I actually think that he is downgraded from last season. I know early, after Bayern scored the first goal before they equalized, he had a free one-on-one chance on a breakaway that I just can't believe he didn't score. Last season, he would have easily scored that. Ousmane Ballon d'Or scores that. Ousmane Dembele perhaps not so much. And I'm worried that PSG might not take advantage of their chances too well because of this. And if they don't get a lot of them, then it's going to be big problems. Because Bayern is attack, attack, attack. I've been saying this from the start of the season. And we know somebody in that front three is going to turn on. Can PSG replicate that? Big question mark, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair. I mean, speaking of PSG, actually, I think Dembele got a higher rating on SofaScore for this last game than Kvara did. Yeah.
Absolute bullshit.
It was like slightly higher, but I think he was exactly 9.0, which gets him into that like dark blue. And Kvara only got the cyan, not deserved. do not deserve.
Yeah.
That had to be
No.
flipped. But anyways, for Bayern, I don't know how they should feel about this first leg because of course they conceded 5. I mean, yeah, we can say their defense wasn't too bad here, but they did concede 5. That's got to be a concern, right? 2 of those goals they let in off PSG's 2 corners of the game. Good efforts from the attackers, of course, but neither were defended especially well. And of course, they conceded 2 in 3 minutes, right? But then they somehow drag it right back. Upamecano scores from the free kick. Diaz gets that brilliant goal from the Kane pass. And suddenly, 5-2 is 5-4. And even at home, a 3-goal deficit would have been a nightmare. But a 1-goal deficit at home is, I think, very manageable. I have a lot of faith after looking at that game in Bayern's attack and their ability to just score their way to victory, which is really what they have to do. It's what they've been planning on doing, I'm sure, in this tie. And I think they can score their way to victory. Even when PSG had their best attacking spells partway through the first half, at the start of the second, Bayern did not stop creating. They had so many attacking sequences with direct runs from Diaz, Musiala getting free in the box, Kane playing in Elise. Honestly, Kane was involved in everything in this game for Bayern. Ultimately, they scored 4 goals, which is hardly bad at all. With some better final action, maybe they find a 5th somewhere, and they only need 1 goal now to level the tie. If they scored 4 in the first, in my mind, 1 extra goal is not a big ask at all. Nor would it be even if it was PSG a goal down going into this next one. Now, Bayern do leave a lot of space behind them, which PSG utilized very well, particularly in the second half. And we know with the way these two teams are set up, PSG don't need much to score. 1 Kvara dribble, 1 run from Hakimi, 1 good touch from Dembele, and suddenly Bayern could be conceding again. So they can't be just reckless from the first minute, and I think to an extent they have to ease into this game. But at the same time, I don't think this Bayern team is built to be cautious, right? Their strength is volume, pressure, repeated attacks. They've got to get into that flow eventually. I think they will get into it, and if they do, well, they'll back themselves to win against anyone from goal down. Even perhaps the other world's best attacking team in PSG. I think Bayern absolutely have what it takes. Either of these teams have what it takes, honestly. It is such a toss-up, this tie. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you said about Bayern being able to come back from 5-2 down, we had a suspicion that they could have done this the entire season. Because in the Bundesliga, they went 3-0 down against Mainz and won 4-3. They went 2-0 down against Freiburg and won 3-2. Just this last week, literally yesterday, they went 2-0 down against Hoffenheim and ended up with a 3-3 draw. The question was, can this level of psychological strength, can this level of last-minute comebacking, smash and grabbing, playing for the full 90, could Bayern do this against the best of the best, the second best or first best team in the world? And the answer, as proven in the first leg in the Parc des Princes, is yes. This Bayern Munich squad can never be counted out against anybody, and that is such a huge strength when it comes to Champions League ties. Last season, obviously Inter didn't win the Champions League, but that's what got them back against Barcelona in that second leg in particular, right? There is no killing this Bayern side, and that makes them very, very dangerous. We look at the offense. I said this last time we covered them as well. There's always going to be somebody in the attack that's cooking. If not everyone is cooking, someone will be. PSG left gaps, and in my opinion, while Kane and Olise scored goals, their best attacker by far, for me, was Luis Diaz. He was being guarded by the best right back in the world, Achraf Hakimi, and he made him look average. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And not only did he score an incredible goal, he was everywhere on the pitch. He was constantly taking advantage of his chances. He had no caution. He threw caution by the wayside, being as aggressive as possible every time he was on the ball, dribbling at defenders, making dangerous passes, taking shots. That is the kind of performance I want to see from a Bayern player. That is the kind of performance that Bayern is going to have in order to get back into this tie. But what happened what I should rather say, what happened since that first match is, of course, Achraf Hakimi got injured. We saw Seni Mayulu play as a right back, which at this point, first off, that's kind of crazy because I swear I've seen this guy play in like every position except for goalkeeper for PSG at this point. But it also leaves a big question mark for what's going to happen defensively in the second leg for PSG. Because if Hakimi cannot contain Luis Diaz, then what are they going to do without Hakimi? that is going to be an absolute nightmare of a question for PSG to try to answer.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, I go back to the SofaScore ratings on that game. 3 PSG defenders got red. Was that deserved? No, but
No.
again, Diaz looked that fucking good that SofaScore then looked at this game and, well, he got a 9.0. I guess we've got to give the defender a 5.5. That's how it worked out. He genuinely was that good this game. Man, I mean, again, I'm way more unconfident. Just like with the Arsenal Atleti tie, I'm way more unconfident in my result than I was before for this. I had Bayern edging this tie before the first leg. I think I'll stick with it, but with way less confidence than before. PSG were amazing in Paris. If they go through, no complaints at all. That attack is terrifying. And 5-4, it is a fragile lead, but it is still a lead. But Bayern again got hit by some amazing attacking spells, and they still survived, and they pushed back. And now they go home and they only need 1 goal to level it with an attack that, as far as I know, has still scored in every game they've played this season. Of course, I've got both teams scoring. I'll say it is a 3-1 Bayern. Could well be 4-2 as well. But I've got Bayern going through. And like the previous tie, it's going to be off a 1-goal lead on aggregate. It could go to pens as well. In which case, like, fuck me, man. What am I supposed to predict at that point?
In which case, the game's just not going to end. In which case, the game ends on Thursday if it goes to penalties. Yeah. Look, I think that there is a very valid case, once again, I have to say, for either side here. But the one thing that's going to edge it for me is the fact that at the Allianz Arena, Bayern Munich in the Champions League has not been as convincing as I would like them to be. Against Real Madrid, of course, they did end up winning that match, but it took a count.
It was late, yeah, because
it was late, and the defense did not look good whatsoever.
Yeah.
And again, I do not trust Upamecano and Ta, even though they were, in my opinion, relatively decent in the first leg. When against an elite competition, have those two players both been good across both legs? I genuinely just can't think of a time that's happened for Bayern Munich. And the second they make mistakes, that PSG offense is going to pounce on them. That is a given. That is a 100% guarantee. And so I think, I agree with you. Bayern are going to have an absolute incredible, overwhelming attack once again. And I think Luis Diaz in particular, as well as Kenan Olise, who are two of the best, if not the two best players in the world right now, they are also going to be absolutely dominant for Bayern Munich in the attack. I just think PSG will be as well. I think we're going to see another shootout. I think it's going to be a 4-4 draw. And because PSG currently have the lead, that means they're going to hold on and be in the finals once again.
So you are predicting then a 17-goal aggregate tie.
Brother, It's Bayern and PSG. Why are you acting
No, but I'm just saying because the record is 13. It's just when we did what was it, a 7-6 over Roma we did on aggregate, and then Inter.
You guys beat Roma.
I know it was 5-2 first leg, but I think
you beat Roma 7. Yeah, it was. Sorry, you're right. It was
7-6, and then of course last year was Inter Barca. That was 7-6,
which was also 7-6.
17 goals on aggregate. I mean, yeah, they're two attacking teams, but just like the fact that we can actually watch that happen.
Right.
And this that would very much be the second leg, like standing up to the first, because again, it's 9 goals in the first leg and 8 goals in the second is hardly bad either, right? Yeah.
But the first leg was utterly expected, though. I mean, we didn't expect 9 goals, but we expected the kind of match that we saw.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Fair. And I think we'll see it again. Absolutely.
Right. And while, of course, I don't expect the offense to be that good again, because that was a bell curve, right? That was an extrema. I also don't think that the defense for either side is going to be as good as they were in the first leg, with Hakimi injured for PSG, and with Bayern's center backs being who they are.
Right. Fair. Okay, well, I mean, I may have underscored. I know I said 3-1. I could push it up to 4-2. I will still say Bayern take it. Though, then again, we could, you don't know who these goals are going to come from and when. Penalties are absolutely an option here. We could go to extra time. Maybe we see more goals in extra time. Let's say this shit could go, if we have ET, this shit could go to 20 goals on aggregate. It could.
Jesus Christ.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's genuinely not if you get extra time on this.
Because they scored cinema.
They scored 9 goals in 90 minutes in the first leg. For 120 minutes to score 11 goals is literally less goals per minute on average, or more time for each goal than the first leg. So if they scored that much in the first leg with how much time they had, 20, we could see 20. I would love to see 20. Again, this is the tie of the neutrals right here, right?
What's crazy, by the way, in those last two Champions League ties, which are 13 games each, I would say against Liverpool and Roma were clearly the defensive side that capitalized on Liverpool's mistakes. I remember James Milner was having an absolute howler across the two legs back when that tie was going on, and I could say a very similar thing about Barcelona and Inter Milan in that leg.
Right.
I don't remember who said this, but one of the commentators who used to play a football player himself said that the game he saw between Bayern and PSG in that first leg was not the same game that he played. Again, I apologize, I can't remember who said that, but it was a former player. And I think that just goes to show that this match, I think, can be very much expected to smash records, because this tie is unlike one we have ever seen in Champions League history. This is like football of the 60s, only it's being played with players of the quality of the modern era. And that is just a mishmash we've never seen before.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this is, you can't predict this one. You can't, like, we've tried to put score lines on it. You can't put a score line on this. It's just watch and have fun. And I know I've seen this sentiment from a lot of other commentators, but I'll repeat it here. For the people who are looking at this game and they're like, can these guys put up a good defense? Are they going to be structurally sound? Do not worry about that here. Just watch them score. Yeah.
I mean, Company especially has never tried to be defensively solid. They are absolutely willing. Bayern is willing to concede 4 goals if they can score 5. That's okay. They've decided to take that risk. And instead of criticizing Company, who has dominated the Bundesliga and who is still very much possible to win a Champions League, just go and enjoy the match. Unless you're a Bayern fan, in which case I totally understand being nervous. But if you're a neutral, don't be pretentious, man. Don't be pretentious.
Yeah. Have some fun here. And absolutely, again, watch both these games. I think they will both be entertaining in their own way. Though if you had to pick one, I guess, yeah, obviously take the Bayern PSG. But again, they're both on different days, which is the great thing now that we have less teams playing, that you don't have to multicast or pick one game to watch. Yeah, watch both of them if you get the chance. I think these will be 2 very fun ends to these ties, and it will be very interesting to see how the tactics work out in advance of the final. Because whatever pairing of 2 teams we get in the final, the tactical matchup will be very, very interesting. And we're going to have like 2-3 weeks to analyze that in advance of the actual finals game. It's, You've got every minute of this game, if these 2 games, if you can watch it, you've got it.
And the thing is, you can't, right? Because I swear these teams are changing their tactics every week. They're evolving on a weekly basis. We can't even keep up with them, right? So, I mean, especially Atleti v Arsenal, maybe I'm biting my tongue by saying, no, not biting my tongue. Maybe I'm costing myself by saying this. Maybe I should be knocking on wood right now. But I just think that second leg is going to be so much more entertaining than the first leg. The way that Arsenal have changed their tactics, and just the way we know Atleti can play. I mean, Atleti were still... It was a very pleasing second half when Atleti were dominating, in my opinion. Even though they couldn't score, when Atleti had the ball, they actually looked quite good. I think the second leg for that match as well is going to be a lot more entertaining.
Yeah. So definitely give both these games a watch if you can. And once these 2 games end off, we will see if we can do a match reaction to these 2 matches immediately. And then, of course, soon enough, we will have for you guys our predictions on the final. That is going to be a very fun watch, I'm sure. So do stay tuned, because we will have, alongside our usual Premier League videos, we will have lots more to come from the Champions League. And stay tuned for another upload from the CoDaKrew. Have a good one.
See ya.